in 1990, and shortly thereafter was instated as the country's president. And from 1994, South Africa became a true democratic republic with no bloodshed. Now, the challenge with the apartheid system was that we ended up with a legacy. And that legacy is part of the talk I want to just start to conclude with, is why we are struggling to build leadership, specifically black leadership, in construction. The township behind there, typically what you call a squatter camp, now politically correct as an informal settlement. And I'll explain some of the problems around that. Wealth gaps and income inequality. Unfortunately, South Africa is one of the worst in the world. Education standards, and I believe the most important. Spatial patterns exclude the poor. And to explain this is that the townships would be situated maybe half an hour to an hour's drive from the city centre where the opportunities were. So it was very exclusionary, and it put a lot of burden on the roads through public transport, which wasn't trains but taxis, on the road transport. Poverty, safety and security, obviously some crime issues, and unemployment sitting currently at 26%. The challenge for us was how do we break down what had been built up since 1950 in the construction industry. And we looked at NMC in a few ways of doing this, but from 1994, government themselves set about to fix this, led by Nelson Mandela, and they put affirmative action in place, which gave preference to black people to get job opportunities. The RDP program, which basically tried to spread some of the wealth from the white hands to the black hands. And then the growth, employment and redistribution policy, which was a macroeconomic policy, which was to try and get economic growth, which the ANC was very successful in achieving for South Africa. And then lastly, and most importantly, the broad-based black economic empowerment, which is because what happened through affirmative action, you had a black ruling elite, and the majority of the population still lived in squatter camps, and kind of you had a reverse of colonialism, where it just changed colour. In leading up to 2010, in terms of construction leadership, the capabilities are there. We had some of, Skanska has been in South Africa, Hochtief from Germany has been there, and a few other companies. That was the stadium in Joburg. The Gautrain recently finished, which Oyfan tells me he's already ridden on. Gouda is a port in Eastern Cape. There's probably another 10 billion rands worth of work to be done here. A manganese smelter, a manganese rack and staker, a line, an iron ore railway line. In fact, South Africa has one of the longest in the world trains, a 4-kilometer long iron ore train. So there's a lot of work to be done on that front. In terms of NMC, what we looked at, we said, how can we take our company, assist black leaders to take equity stakes, in other words, take ownership in the company, and get enough turnover so that we can grow our business and still make profits to be sustainable. We have a grading system, and we strove to become the highest grading, which means you can do projects of over 200 million Swedish krona, which is the biggest, the highest grade in the country. And then in terms of broad-based black economic empowerment, we brought on a female black partnership who took a 26% owners equity stake in the business. And that allowed us then to tender on government tenders and gave us what they call a level 2. There's 8 levels of BEE, is what it's called, and level 2 is second highest. So we probably, of the bigger contractors in South Africa, have one of the highest ratings for black economic empowerment. Then we started a business school, and my colleague Samantha will be speaking about that a little later. Samantha is sitting at the front here. And the business school is basically to help bring in our supply chain, to bring managers and leaders from our supply chain, and in a very simple way, not to do MBAs, but to bring them in and around certain knowledge areas, to sit around the table and to assimilate new information in a very fast format. So 1 to 3 days, or sometimes 5 days, you would come into a room, do learning together, and kind of get a quick update on contracts, social skills, soft skills, and so on. We then looked at 3 areas: leadership, management, and trade skills. We also started a 2-year leadership program. And this leadership program is quite unique. It was done by our CEO himself. And we then later started to assist him with it. And he basically brought 20 of the up-and-coming guys in the company and girls from a broad cross-section from finance, operations, and from procurement. and brought them through the leadership program and taught them how to become mature leaders. So people, in fact, the board of directors would sit in front of us, and we would sit and point out the weaknesses and the strengths of the board. So just to try and mature ourselves so we can handle leadership decisions, which are not very easy. Sometimes you have to turn on your own board member and maybe push them out of the board because of non-performance and so on. So he took us through that program, and it's running in its 3rd term. And then a contractor development program was for the small, what we call small, medium, micro enterprises, especially black-owned contractors, that we help them to grow as businesses, because builders are not just builders, they're business people. And we then created a program which wasn't entirely successful to try and grow these small black businesses, because we need to rely on them in order to get government work. And it helps to create the redistribution of wealth in the country. And then the last thing was we would register companies, entities in the countries that we went into so that we could have local partnerships. And I'll just quickly find that these, Trevor Manuel has put 5 things on the board, because I feel Karen coming up behind me here. Come on up, Karen. They've laid out the strategy for South Africa to 2030, and those are some of the areas that they want to tackle. And if you look at those quickly, they all have to do with the built environment. So there is significant opportunity, not only in South Africa, but as a gateway to the rest of Africa. I'm not going to explain that, but it's a typical problem we have in South Africa. And I think just finishing off, is that that's a 26-lane highway, not in Africa, in Houston, Texas. And the question I'd like to put to you is, sometimes we have become so solutions focused. In the past it was bad to be problems focused, you had to be solutions focused. But now in a way it's bad to be solutions focused, because we start solving the wrong problems. So my suggestion to you is we need to spend a lot more time asking, is this really what we want in the future? And the leaders need to make those decisions and change the way we think. And the last slide, Karen, as you walk up, is African construction leaders, in my opinion, need to understand what those future world scenarios are. And in forums like this, we can unpack what a sustainable world looks like. They need to have muscle to lobby for policy shift. If you cannot influence government, then the policy will not be conducive to a new world. Partner globally for resource, and that's why I'm speaking to you. I believe if you compare us to Egypt and Nigeria, we are certainly, and we have a lot of partnerships already, bilateral agreements with Sweden in terms of your manufacturing. I suggest that you can give us a shout and partner with us. And then to access learning from the developed world. You've been around a lot longer than what we have, and to basically take some of the learning from your own cities and to put it into Africa. And then the last point is just to protect Africa in terms of sustainability for future generations. And with that, thank you very much.